Hello, hello. Oh, goodness. Hello, hello. So, let's just get right into it. We have the question, right? We have the question. Are black people retarded? And let me go to um, the initial post here for our conversation. Darn it, where'd it go? Ah, here it is. Oh goodness. Let's go to our screen and share this out. Let's get right to it. Hey, Truism, good to see you. Seeking My Creator. Sub-Zero. Let's talk about it. Good to see you. True Hype. D-Rock Den. No Country for Old Simps. Clue Channel. Shaka. Close S. In sarcasm. I don't know. Antisocialite. Good to see you. Michael Vince Perkins, Deacon Dave, the Emperor, Jarrell, Nick Taylor. Good to see everyone. Let's go ahead and play this clip. Where? Oh, there it is.
To discuss recent crime concerns. 12 News' Delisha Banks was there.
Just last Saturday, a 23-year-old man was shot and killed outside of the Texaco on Medgar Evers Boulevard. Councilman Stokes and some supporters came out Sunday to voice their concerns.
Any other city in this state and country where you have a nuisance will be in court filing legal paperwork to shut these kind of places down.
Stokes says establishments like Texaco should be held accountable for several shootings on the property and the negligence of its customers. His supporters agree.
When you have the convenience store making it not possible for people to go out to the
Wait, what?
store, making it not possible for people to go out to the Kroger's or Walmart's when they just can't make it. They come here for these particular items, and they're not doing everything they can do as a proper business to make sure people are safe and they feel protected.
The first thing about the order of business is customer service. If you're providing a business that you see is detrimental to the community that you're serving, and that your business is causing people to lose their lives,
yes,
then you should have the integrity of a human being for yourself to say, we need to shut this down.
Stokes says he plans to address these matters at the next city council meeting. In Jackson, Delisha Banks, 12 News.
And that's the councilman, by the way.
Any other
Councilman Stokes and some supporters came out Sunday to voice their concerns.
any other city in this state and country where you have a nuisance will be in court filing legal paperwork to shut these kind of places down.
Stokes says establishments like Texaco.
Bro. Jackson is done. I mean, it is all the way done. There's no bringing it back, man. Everybody's left. So this is what started, right? This post here, right? Black activists in Jackson, Mississippi are calling for a Texaco gas station to shut down because of growing murders and crime in the area. right? So their grand plan is just to shut it down, and all of a sudden, crime's going to drop. Like, are you for real? Like, are these people retarded? That's not going to happen. And wait, I got one more. Let me play this.
Where without like,
Well, what is smart?
Really?
You know, what's smart is your ability to use information correctly.
Now,
Yeah, use information correctly, which they cannot. And I don't know where you go from here, because that city is dead. And you know what? This really reminded me of this other thing that took place. All right. And this is the most impotent thing I think I've ever seen.
Should be held accountable for
That I think I have ever seen. So, if y'all remember this, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, this happened.
At the Belmont Red Line stop,
In
they
Chicago.
swarmed the streets and caused chaos throughout the neighborhood. This is the scene that unfolded just after 10 o'clock last night. Hundreds of teens took to the streets, shutting down Belmont for hours.
There was no celebration yesterday. It was just pure chaos.
Radi Hashish is the manager of the Slice Shop. The restaurant, just steps from the Belmont Red Line stop, was surrounded. He shared this video he took from inside the store of teens dancing on cars and drinking in the streets.
Right away, we decided to close both the store and the restaurant, and we stayed all night watching, making sure nobody broke in or nobody vandalized our business.
CPD officers worked to control the crowd and move them out of the area, but the teens left behind a path of destruction. People were horrified by the extent of the damage this morning. Shoe prints on cars, hoods dented, windshields broken.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Grace Rowan said she even heard gunshots and was too scared to leave her apartment.
It has been very chaotic. And as somebody who's lived in Lakeview for honestly the past 3 years, it's very scary to see how things have changed over time.
People are hoping the city steps up to prevent this from happening again. Alderman Bennett Lawson helped with cleanup this morning. He released a statement saying, quote, "I will be meeting with the 19th District Police, CTA, and others to discuss what..."
Time to step up. That's what Corey Brooks tells me tonight. Pastors and community leaders need to get to work. The first mission, make sure our young people know what's acceptable and what isn't. To tell people it's not constructive to demonize our youth, as Mayor-elect Johnson did, is misguided thinking, according to Brooks.
I think it's about holding them accountable. I think it's about teaching them values. I think it's about teaching them self-respect. And when we don't do that, we're going to create a society, a city that is going to have a long, hard summer.
More places to go for our young people along the lines of the massive Project Hood Community Center Pastor Brooks is building in Woodlawn will be helpful in keeping our young people engaged. But for the moment, Pastor Brooks is calling for Chicagoans to show support for the police department as they attempt to curtail the chaos. And he's encouraging parents of young people to get more involved.
You know, I come from a single parent household, and I know what it's like for a single mother to have to deal with a rebellious teenager. So it can be very tough. It can be very tedious. Parenting is tough. All of us who have children, we know that. But at the same time, it does not negate the fact that we have to take responsibility for our children.
All right, so these are. Oh, sorry. Darn it, I was on mute. Well, all right, so let me just trace this out real quick again. All right, hundreds of teens take over and ransack a community. The pastors, where is it? The pastors get in on it.
People from all.
It's about
and do nothing, and then they march for nothing. I mean, who are they marching for? Who are they marching to? Like, what solution is there beyond the people that live there to fix this? Yeah, this Chicago Tides. Hey, what's up? Right? Who are they marching to? This isn't even the hood. This isn't even where these teens come from, where it's going crazy. They're doing nothing. Doing absolutely nothing. So Sub-Zero asked the question. He said, can Black people run a functioning society? And so my answer to that would be yes. Caveat, the people that are capable of it have no desire to do it. None. Like, why would you? I mean, Black people that are capable of having a functioning society live in the suburbs around other white people, is what it is. They have no desire because there is no reward. I mean, what do you actually get for that? Oh, I'm a functional Black person. I'm gonna do what? Move to the South Side and get those guys into shape? Or I'm just gonna go over here and live next to people like me who value the nuclear family, education, and are upwardly mobile. Is what would you do? Right? What would you do? And so let's go back. Let's go back now to Jackson.
Almost anywhere in Mississippi is awful. Someone said that once in a comment a long time ago, and it always really stuck with me. I don't know if they live here, they were just trolling, but I never knew if they were right or wrong because I hadn't really been here before. After driving around all of Mississippi for a week, I can now say that's not true. The whole state's not awful. I had seen enough of the state to know that there was a lot of good here. But man, Jackson is...
Bro, look at these potholes. I mean, bro, if it actually snowed here,
is bad. So I was just driving around Jackson, trying to check the place out. And he came across this street in the middle of town. Well, I don't even know if you can even call this a street anymore. A road, maybe. I mean, people were weaving back and forth to avoid the potholes like it was just a normal day for them. I was like, this is probably the worst road I've ever driven on. And I had to finally just get out of the car. This was just...
open sewer, right? This is either... Yeah, look at that. That's sewage. That's raw sewage in the street. What in the fuck is this? Hey, salute Great Britain. Ducky Momo, don't think I've seen you here before. Shaka, yo. Open sewage, right? In the street. And I've always said this, first world decay is worse than third world lack, right? Because a dirt road only gets so bad. A dirt road can get washed out, right? Third world people don't have a open sewers, because they don't have the sewers.
Too much. Looked like a major disaster just hit the place, but that didn't happen. Then a guy pulls up. His name's Chris. You'll meet him later. He didn't want to be on camera at the time, but the stuff he told me, man, oh man. What the fuck?
This is an age-old...
Yeah, let me turn this up for y'all.
Infrastructure system. If they go back and do the research, this thing probably hadn't had any type of significant, upgrade in forever. Probably since, I hate to say it, since Mississippi was ran by white people. And maybe it needs to go back to that.
Say what?
Was ran by white people. And maybe it needs to go back to that. Said, since Mississippi was ran by white people. And maybe it needs to go back to that.
Jackson, Mississippi was the last place I stopped on my Deep South road trip. I'm kind of glad it was the last stop. If I had started here, it would have been a really bummer way to begin. Jackson, Mississippi. It was my final day on my Deep South adventure, and on this day, it really felt like an adventure. So I was here in early April, and the area got hit by a really intense, rare, almost hurricane thing. So I had to spend the day driving around in the super bad weather. So I apologize in advance for the footage. Driving into the worst hoods is hard enough, but in the pouring rain, on roads that are just terrible, well, think of this as war footage. I'd heard there was a dark cloud hanging over Jackson. I guess this is it, right? God, what is happening? So I drove around all the areas of Jackson where people told me were the worst. And man, they weren't lying. I saw so many streets that had burned out homes and everything was overgrown. I've been to a lot of bad places in this country, and halfway through the day's drive, I was like, I think I hit the ghetto gold mine. Jackson has all sorts of issues. It's the capital of what's been called the worst state you can live in. There's less than 150,000 people here now, and that's down 25% just from 1990 alone. Sure, there's other big-ish cities in the US that are in bad shape. Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia. But those cities have an industry and pride, some kind of hope. Nuh-uh, not here. Not in Jackson, not at all. What's up?
Hey.
Hey, honey.
Would you let me have $1.15?
He didn't slow
Where I
down.
am right now is in South Jackson. There really isn't a bad pocket in Jackson. It's very, very much a north-south thing. Like everything north of downtown seems to be decent. We'll see that later. But everything south of downtown is a complete disaster.
I mean, what? This does not look real, dude. This looks like an abandoned town. Like they won't even make the owner like knock it down and turn it into a lot, put a fence up. Like, you know, sometimes there's decay in a city and they will say, hey, you got to knock it down. You got to do something. So it's just not blight, right? It can be run down, but it can't be blight. It can't kill your spirit to look at it. But this, if you look at this every day, how does this affect your hope for the future?
For one, Jackson has one of the highest murder rates in the world. The only two other cities with a higher murder rate were Tijuana, Mexico, and Caracas, Venezuela. My God. The state's governor himself just called Jackson the murder capital of the world. He'd know. He's here every day. Look at that murder rate. It's pretty easy to get a gun here. And as long as you're 18, you can carry.
Wait, 90? God dang. Do you know how small Jackson is? I think Jackson's only like 100,000 people. So, or 100,000-ish. 138 murders for the year. A per capita rate of 92.1. That is insane.
Everyone. So a lot of people here have guns. And that's caused a lot of problems. A few years ago, Jackson's mayor made it illegal to openly carry. You can imagine how that went. This is Mississippi, damn it. That didn't last long. If you get into trouble here, it can take hours for the cops to respond. I heard in some parts of Jackson, it's pandemonium. There's gunfights at gas stations, and they're breaking into pharmacies to steal pills. And it's just chaos. Be glad that's not happening where you live.
It just looks like the end of the world in here.
There's like gangs moving up from New Orleans and
Bro, they gotta change the name of the city to Last of Us because this is ridiculous.
Memphis that are coming in to try to set up new turf. That makes it all even worse. They know they need more cops, so they upped the pay to $30,000 a year. Can you imagine getting paid that to work in here as a cop? This was where they fought for civil rights, and now they're killing each other. As you can imagine, at night, this place is nowhere a white boy with a YouTube channel should be. But this was early morning, and it was raining, so everybody was inside. But I'm sure shit goes down here on blocks every single day. I don't think a lot of these people will ever get out of here. Somebody once told me Jackson, Mississippi is like a prison without walls. Part of the problem is it's just super poor here. But I didn't have to tell you that. You can see that. Maybe 1 in 3 people here in this part of town lives on welfare alone. You know the saying, here in Mississippi, they're first on every bad list and last on every good list. A lot of that comes from Jackson. But it wasn't the danger that stood out to me on the days I drove through South Jackson. It was the condition of the place. I've been to third world countries before. The stuff I saw here was worse. I'm not kidding.
Yep, $30K a year to wear a badge. Great Britain. Yeah, dude, it's terrible. Let's skip ahead.
To their schools. A lot of people didn't like that. So the wealthy families took their kids out to the burbs.
Oh, here we go.
Where? I saw liquor stores that were closed down. That's a sign that things are super bad if they can't make it. There were stray dogs all over the place. That was tragic. And then this guy or girl.
Bro, that is stray dogs everywhere is straight up third world. I don't know if y'all been to a developing country, but yeah, seen a lot of stray dogs, a lot of stray animals. That is very developing nation-ish.
Getting footage of another dumpster, and I was like, wait, what is that? What is happening in this country, people? And all of this, and they have these Keep Jackson Beautiful signs all over. What are they talking about? The poor kids. The schools are terrible. A lot of the teachers have to work second jobs. What have we come to when our teachers have to pick up shifts? Like, seriously, how did that happen?
I tell you how that happened. Teaching wasn't a profession or a career. You know, a lot of women taught they had a husband. So you didn't need to be have a income in which you can support yourself and only yourself. It's a big part of it. So this whole teachers need to make a lot of money. No. And look at their product. You know, teachers' pay should be commensurate with their product.
People in town say this is going to be the next Flint, Michigan. Driving around, I think it's already there now.
Bro, I don't think Flint is this bad, to be honest. I don't.
The problem started in the 70s when Mississippi desegregated their schools. A lot of people didn't like that. So the wealthy families took their kids out to the burbs. And then the place just went downhill. A lot of businesses closed, the mall closed. All of this was a pretty busy little neighborhood one time. Now there's hardly anything left for blocks. And this is just a few blocks from downtown. The kids here just don't have anything to do, so they get into crime. The adults have some options here. And downtown, actually not a disaster or anything.
And so that's the thing about what they call white flight. It's not just white flight, bro. Black people are leaving Jackson, right? So the Jackson metro area is something like Jackson water system. We'll get there. Let's just play.
It's not a very big downtown, but it's not too bad. Jackson has some homeless people, but I didn't see very many of them. The culture and history here is really strong, especially the music history. They call this the city with soul because of the blues and gospel and folk and jazz. They also have a bunch of museums that talk about all the good and bad things that have happened here over time. And there are some good, humble, happy, hardworking people in town. You'll see a lot of that when you're downtown. I didn't want you to think the place was completely crazy. And downtown's where the state capitol building is, which is under construction. You can read into that how you want. I can say it was the only construction project I saw in the entire city. A lot of people say Jackson's corrupt, and that corruption is a big part of the problem here. I don't know about that, but I know there's a lot of controversy with the decisions being made here. Not too long ago, they announced that the state was going to have to step in and take over the policing of Jackson. And a lot of people here didn't like that. That's because Jackson is 80% black, and the state legislature inside that building is mostly white. Anyways, the NAACP is involved in this now, and there's never a dull day here in Jackson, I suppose.
Take the state capital and put it in Oxford, because these people can't run a city, right? Hey, what's up, Andy? This is Nick Johnson. Took a tour of Jackson. So, yeah, move the capital to Oxford, because they can't run a civilization. They can't run the city. So the state has to come in and make sure that the state capital, the entire state, can run, right? You Negroes can't mess up this city to the point where the state can't do its business. You know, and that's the thing that's never said about this whole project. Oh, it's just right there, no man. Blah, 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 blah. No, you have one of the most murderous cities in the world, and you can't control it. Does that mean the entire state has to come to a halt? Right? Just move it. You don't have to deal with this. So, speaking of white flight, so here is Jackson, Mississippi, race and ethnicity, yada, yada, yada. As of 2020, population is like 120,000, right? In 2020 of black people. So you take a look at the entire Jackson metro area, though, which is, let's call it 500,000 people. And then it's 45% black. So you're talking 235, let's call it 235,000. 245. Yeah, 245,000, right? So about half of the black people in the actual metropolitan area do not live in the city because they don't want to live in the city. And if you start looking at the suburbs, you're going to find plenty of black representation. So it wasn't just white flight. Black people don't want to live there either. You know, if they can escape mentally and culturally and spiritually, they do. The middle class, bro.
So it's not a complete mess here. I showed you downtown already. And some of Jackson's decent. Here's just an average part of town. In a lot of the city, you can get a house in the $80,000 to $90,000 range, and that makes it pretty much one of the cheapest cities in the country.
Skip ahead to... Here we go. And this is what Sub was talking about, right? With the rehab and who was doing it, right?
Streets, good schools, and no crime. The complete opposite of Jackson. I mean, look at the Taco Bell here. They don't put Taco Bells up like that in the hood. When I was out and about in Jackson, I didn't really go too far from my hotel, just because there's really nothing to do here. I was told to go to the Iron Horse Grill. People said it's one of the most iconic restaurants in Jackson, but it's burned down like 5 times before. I was like, no, thank you. So I just kind of wandered around Fondren at night. One evening, I wound up at Zundo Ramen Bar. I got some amazeballs pork dumplings with that soft bread, and a good old ramen bowl. And the second night, I went to Thai-licious and had some crab rangoons. I also got some yellow curry. I wish it was more exciting here, but that's all I got, folks. I think it was on that second day in the rain, right around the time my car bottomed out on that broken up road in the hood, that I thought, you know what? I think Jackson, Mississippi is the worst place I've ever been. Worse than Baltimore, worse than Shreveport, Pine Bluff, even Oakland. It was a really terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I came down to the South knowing I'd see a lot of poverty and crime and the results of decades of political mishaps. But man, and the thing is, you don't really hear about Jackson a lot. It's kind of an under-the-radar disaster. On my last night here, I looked out the window from the hotel and I saw the cops all stationed in Fondren. It kind of reminded me of in a battle. You know, when the tanks patrol the only turf they have left to protect, you know, since everything else has been taken, like they're holding their ground. I don't think this is a red or a blue problem. It's a green one. There's just not enough of it to fix the place.
Nah, it's a culture problem. And see, and that is the, you know, there's a, I guess, trope about having a discussion on race in America. And that never leads to an honest discussion about race in America because culture is never addressed. So there isn't enough green to go around. No. It's not green. There aren't enough functional people living in a functional culture. You understand? It is. How is it a cultural problem, Auntie? How is it a cultural problem? Because poor people can still run a place and it not turn into an enormous S-hole. Right? Franklin, Ohio is not an S-hole. Middletown, Ohio, on the other hand, is. Right? Because Middletown, Ohio Because of the people that live there. So Franklin, Ohio, decent. Middletown, garbage. Right? There are small towns that aren't terrible in Mississippi. There are small towns all over the South that aren't terrible.
I don't know what Jackson's going to do. I don't know what they can do here, except hold on for the ride. But yeah, so I wanted to talk to you. How long have you lived in Jackson?
My whole life.
Okay. Now, when I reached out to you, I think I found you on Craigslist. I was like, hey, I'm doing a video about Jackson. I went to Jackson. There's a lot of
Go. I didn't have to deal with that, but my coworkers did. They was frustrated with that. I mean, that was just ridiculous in itself. So, that's
yeah. Like the water situation, I know the trash, the roads,
yes,
the crime and stuff. I'm like, what does Jackson need to do to get itself back to its glory days again?
Right. The crime. I hate leaving the house at night. I have a 3-year-old son, so I don't even take him out anywhere. It's times where I don't even stop and realize. Certain times, certain parts of Jackson. Every day on the news, my news app is another shooting, somebody else being murdered. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, it's terrible. But I just can't bring myself to move. Like, I gotta take the bad with the good. I love it, but I do fear.
What? Can't leave, bro. Hey, you ain't lying. Coach Prime would have eventually been killed. Eventually. A little too much high signing, a little too much success, and all of a sudden, you're going to get set up and robbed. Yeah, it's a culture problem. We need to stop tolerating degenerates in society that don't have to be wealthy to not litter, not throw trash on the ground, not pick up trash in your community. Exactly.
Of being carjacked or robbed or anything like that. That is one of my fears.
How did it get to this point in Jackson?
It's going in reverse.
That's just not a good place to be.
No, it's not. But I could just hope it gets better.
Like the water, the fucking trash, dude, they gotta get this shit off.
It's terrible. It seems like the city is going in reverse. Or they spend so much time bickering. And, and it's been studied that has been done and saying that this place is the most corrupt place out of the entire union. And at some point in time, the federal government must step up. If the city can't do it, the state can't do it, can't get along to come to a solution versus bickering. Someone has to.
That is an admission that they can't run it. It is. That is an admission that they can't run it.
So much time bickering, and it's been studied that has been done and saying that this place is the most corrupt place out of the entire union. And at some point in time, the federal government must step up. If the city can't do it, the state can't do it, can't get along to come to a solution. Must step up. If the city, that this place is the most corrupt place out of the entire union. And at some point in time, the federal government must step up. If the city can't do it, the state can't do it, can't get along to come to a solution. Versus bickering, someone has to take control of this thing, and ultimately I think it's up to the federal government to make them do the right thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's cool. Who's bickering?
Huh?
Like the politics?
Yeah, the politicians. They sit up there, they comfortable, the local government, they bickering with each other. Then the local and the state government, they blaming, they point fingers at each other. This is an age-old infrastructure system. If they go back and do the research, this thing probably hadn't had any type of significant, upgrade in forever. Probably since, I hate to say it, since this city was ran by white people. And maybe need to go back to that. Hey, we're all here. What's best for this? If they go back and do the research, this thing probably hadn't had any type of significant, upgrade in forever. Probably since, I hate to say it, since this city was ran by white people. And maybe need to go back to that. Since this city was ran by white people. And maybe need to go back to that. Hey.
Well, maybe.
We're all here. What's best for the city, that's what we need to go for. Regardless of color, we need to get off of color, and we need to hold these politicians accountable. When we elect these people, we elect them with ensuring that they're going to do what they said they're going to do, But so many times, they have got elected and they have done nothing. And it's honestly, it's discouraging. It's very discouraging,
Is that why the crime is so bad too?
That's part of the reason why.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course, that's part of the reason why. You know, it's the therapy in the education system. You know, hey man, if you go just, I hate to say it, go to Madison. Those schools look like colleges. They're getting funded. You know, here they say they fund them based on attendance. You see, they shutting down the schools around here. There's 2 schools right here that shut down. Rowan Middle School, Brown Elementary, side by side. So not only is that these academic institutions are being shut down, now it's a haven for crime. Now it's an eyesore. You know, it's a ripple effect. You know, and a citizen don't do so much. Now here go the trade problem. Now more business.
Now, what did he say? Go to Madison. All right, let's go to Madison. 2020 census. All right, 11.66% of Madison is black people, because black people are Audi 5000. They want no more to do with this than most people. And you know, if they're sitting there trapped there like that woman says, "Oh, I can't leave," right? That is just a spiritual cage. And so Aunties asks, what's the solution? The solution is accountability. I mean, we have to be honest about this. The people that are there cannot govern themselves, period. They just can't. So that has to be said. Like outwardly and openly, they cannot manage their own affairs. And someone else has to do it. Right? That is just it. Step 1. Right? Step 2, someone else has to run it. And then the degenerates have to stop being subsidized and they have to be called out. You know, stop stop saying, "Oh, the CIA destroyed the black family." Did it? Did it really? Or was it the previous decades drug policy via the functioning addict and methadone that laid the groundwork and gave fertile ground to crack? Right? The excuses have to stop and the accountability has to start. And at some point, and you see it happening now, that's why good old St. George, Louisiana said, "Adios. We got our own thing." And heck, 18% of the new St. George will be black residents. And I bet you they're real glad to be there. So, yep. Now, where are we at? Where are we at in the program?
How about leaving the city?
Who?
More business.
Oh, yeah.
They're talking about leaving the city. You know, something got to be done, man. Who you with?
I got a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can draw some attention to it.
Yeah, something has to be done, man. You know, on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the federal government got to take steps. They're going to have to step up.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
He says the federal government is going to. Why? Right? This is the thing, right? It is mainstream black thought to be taken care of by somebody else. If you do not embrace that, you are immediately incompatible. If you don't think that as a black person, you are immediately incompatible with a lot of other black people. Because no, it isn't the federal government's fault.
This is the problem. Look at it.
Are you gonna stay? Because a lot of people are leaving.
I'm gonna stay. I've been here all my life.
So you just want? I mean, it just needs.
Why should I have to leave? Why should I have to pick up my bags and leave? It's almost like,
because it's terrible. That's why. See, and I always used to think, why do people still live there? Because they are in a mental and spiritual cage that keeps them there. Right. I used to live in Dayton, and a lot of people in Dayton said that. Say, "Man, don't get stuck here. Don't get stuck here." And now I know what they're talking about, because you end up a resident of a post-apocalyptic town in the South, because you can't let it go.
Dislocation. Force everyone out. Don't do anything. Don't force them out physically, but the lack of service, the lack of security, the lack of basic needs, drive people away, then come back, rebuild it at such a high rate that, got you still high. There's no solution.
Well, not really in Dayton, right? I say Dayton because people know that. I lived in and around Dayton, but never could have voted for the mayor. So I lived in like several towns, Xenia, Kettering, Centerville, a lot of areas down there in the Dayton area.
no solution in play for the near future. So this thing is going to linger for months and months and months. The summer's about to approach. These mosquitoes are about to get vicious. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be a lot of sick. There's going to be a lot of this, you know.
You know what? I liked Columbus, but I was never in the bad parts. So I don't know what to say. I was in like Bexley and like the west side where they had just built some new mall areas over there, and Short North and all that. So I was really only in nice areas in Columbus, but I'm sure there are bad areas too.
A health issue. A health issue. You know, it's going to be a health issue, man. An environmental issue. You know, when it's going to start affecting the water. It's going to start affecting the clean water system.
Well, the water's already fucked up anyway, right?
Oh,
Speaking of the water, oh, Jackson's water system. How did we get here, and how does it get fixed? Nobody knows, apparently. So let's start, I think, in... Hold on, tax. Here it is. Bastard. So, white residents took their tax dollars to the surrounding bedroom communities and black people. Between 2000 and 2020, the population of Madison and Rankin counties grew by 35,000 and 42,000 respectively. In a state where the economy was built on a history of racial struggles, what was left in Jackson was a high concentration of low-wage renters, impoverished families. This caused revenue to take a hit, as many families were simply unable to afford any pronounced increase in services. According to Brookings Metro Monitor, the Jackson metro area has only increased jobs by 6.6% between 2009 and 2019. Over that same period, median wages in Jackson declined by 7.6%. So it's an admission. They can't run it without the white man's money. They can't budget. They can't patch. They can't do it. And see, people like this don't want to be free. People like this don't want to be free because you can't be a free people unless you can fail. If you cannot own your failure, if you cannot own your destiny, you cannot be a free people. Right? If you can't be accountable for yourself, you cannot be a free people. And so, hey, all the functional black people were like, deuces, we're out of here. And what happens over time is you not only get a brain drain, which is fine, right? You get an upwardly mobile drain. That's what happens. The people that actually want to succeed look at the environment and think, ugh, why would I want to succeed here? You know, if I have to put in X level of effort to succeed, why would I stay here and put in X plus Y for even less success? Right? They can't attract it because who's left in Jackson now? The people who won't leave.
Well, it's a freestyle. Good morning. You'll see I make a lot of mistakes.
Oh, here's
Good morning. It's Christmas List. I'm back with the camera again.
Here,
imagine what it once.
We went over this in Sub's channel. Basically, this I want to hear this guy's interview again. That's right. Freedom and rights are not possible without duties and accountability.
Look like huge. Yeah. And look at this. Oh my goodness. I guess if you leave something that long with the weather, it's gonna fall apart. And now it's at a point where you might have to destroy it rather than fix it. Yeah. The foundation. And I wonder what percentage of Jackson has been abandoned, because it's like business after business. And these businesses all used to employ people from the community, right? So when the businesses are gone, look at this. This is a new Creation Community Service Center.
I've never been here, but I always seen it.
Every business, except for that motorcycle club, that's the only, and the car wash. Those were the only two businesses that were still I guess the motorcycle club isn't a business. Still open. Is this a school that's being used?
Yeah.
And there's no windows? Wow.
I think they got a window maybe.
I see one window. Can you imagine that big class with one window?
It's like a penitentiary.
At Kamikaze Franklin, for those of you that know my government name, man. And I'm a lifelong Jacktown representative, man. So I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit about my city.
Yeah. Where are we right now?
So right now we are on the historic Fair Street. All right. So for a lot of people that don't know, Fair Street was the second most successful Black empowerment business district in the nation behind Harlem. So we're in front of the Alamo Theater right here. All right, and right across the street, right over here, used to be the Crystal's Palace, right here as well. And along.
You know what this strikes me as someone who is talking about a corpse, right? As it panned to the building.
Black empowerment business district in the nation behind Harlem. So we're in front of the Alamo Theater right here.
The Alamo Theater is a corpse.
All right, and right across the street, right over here, used to be the Crystal's Palace, right here as well. And along this street right here was the Black Movie Theater, all of the Black speakeasy joints here. So we had people like B.B. King, all of the greats that traveled the Chitlin Circuit performed here on this street. Of course, when integration happened in the 70s.
When Black people were the minority.
And Black folk who couldn't shop at places like Woolworth and the other places that were here in the city of Jackson. When integration happened and we were able to shop in other places, of course, the Black businesses on this street suffered. And, you know, there have been several attempts through several administrations to try to revive this street. And that's where we're at right now.
Let me ask you,
this is still hallowed ground, though.
Man, I'm so glad that I got to meet you. And I feel like we're right at the right spot for you to share some positive history. But do you remember in your younger days the difference, like what it felt like to be on the street?
So I remember being on this street when I was a little bit younger, but the deterioration and the blight started happening on this street when I was in like maybe elementary school.
Oh, that long ago.
High school.
Wow.
So
you really can't.
Elementary school. This guy's like 50. So this is so the 70s, right? 70s, early 80s.
Tell it's been a while, so you can't really tell.
Yeah.
And there were businesses all along the street, all of the street. My dad worked at a men's store called Shaw's that was on that corner, right up there by that light before you get to the Federal Building. So B.B. King, who that is. So old Dennis Brothers shoe shop right here.
So how does this make you feel? I'm not a resident. It's only my second time in Mississippi, but I got this like sadness to see that something that was once so great.
Sometimes things have
fallen apart.
Sometimes things have to deteriorate so that they can be rebuilt.
And do you believe that that's what's going to happen?
And that's exactly what's happening right now.
Has to happen.
You know, Jackson, Mississippi.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Is he retarded? That is not happening.
He gets a terrible.
Heck, even the substation is empty. Like they had to put a substation down here. You see above his shoulder right here, Jackson Police Department substation. And now the substation's closed. What? I mean, dude, there's garbage in the street, right? There's brick in, looks like a pile of brick in the street that probably fell off the building.
Rap, we get a real negative narrative painted on us. You know, people have come through here like yourself.
And here's the thing: it's not really a negative narrative because no one knows this is happening. This is not common knowledge, right? When people discuss Baltimore, Memphis, Jackson, there isn't a, wow, those are real ish holes. It's not. It's, oh, you know, they don't get enough funding. Or, oh, you know, oh, they're not doing enough for these people. It's not, they destroyed it, leave it alone. It's like a toxic waste dump. No.
YouTubers have come through in the past and they basically just rode through the city and took pictures of dilapidated buildings, and they put up these insightful headlines for clickbait to say that Jackson, Mississippi is this and Jackson, Mississippi
The worst
is that.
city they've ever seen.
Jackson,
in their life.
Mississippi, the worst city that they've ever seen, and they're doing it for clickbait. They didn't talk to anybody. They didn't get out. They didn't learn about the history. They didn't do any of the things that you're doing to try to get context for the city.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic city with beautiful people in this city, and we have the problem.
Singing and dancing was out.
Whoops, is he retarded? Darn it. I think he's retarded.
That the city is being run poorly.
So you yourself, you're not blaming anyone in particular?
You know, it's disingenuous.
Can we walk a little bit as we talk? Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, there it is. Hold on.
That have been brewing since the late 80s and the early 90s.
Grandfathered in.
And because we are a majority black city, because we're an 85% black city, and the people who lead this city look like me, of course, there's going to be people who are going to try to paint the narrative that the city is being run poorly.
So you yourself, you're not blaming anyone in particular?
You know, it's disingenuous.
Can we walk a little bit as we talk? Yeah.
Sure. It's really...
You're the first, because normally the point...
That dude is married, man. I just peeped his wedding ring. Do you not love your family? Like, if you have the ability to leave and you don't, I think that is a sign that you do not, in fact, love your family. How could you?
The finger is always being pointed at the local politician.
Well, you know, that's easy here because, you know, when you're talking about a red state like Mississippi, you have Jackson, Mississippi, the capital city that has a black mayor, a majority black city council, the supervisors are black, the police chief is black. Most of the people that are in leadership positions are black. But nobody talks about the fact that, you know, when the demographics of the city changed and Jackson elected its first black mayor in 1997, nobody talks about the white flight that happened. Nobody talks about the white people who fled the city of Jackson like it was on fire.
I mean, and does it never occur to people that say that they are declaring that they cannot run their city without white people? I mean, just once, you know, they would think, I'm admitting something there that I don't think I should. Maybe I should take accountability. But again, that's built into the culture, that culture that has to change.
And took the kids out of the school systems. And took
Do you think that has something to do with the abandonment of the homes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, we're going to pick up because we're able to pick up and leave. We're going to pick up, we're going to move to the suburbs, and we're going to leave you with the blight. We're going to leave you with deterioration. And not only are we going to leave you with all of the bullshit, we're going to then summarily blame you.
And remember, black people left them too. Right? Black people left too.
For the bullshit that exists.
Right.
So it's really disingenuous for people to blame people at the lowest level of government for the biggest problems that exist. These are problems that the governor, state government.
And see, they appeal to a greater master. Always. Well, what about the government? What about the state government? What about the federal government? You know, you run the whole city, but that obviously isn't enough.
The legislature, you know, our Congress people, our state senators, our state representatives, these are problems that we have asked them to fix. These are problems that we've gone to them with for many years. And this is the results of it right here. You know, this is one of the results. So again.
No, dude, I can blame anything on anybody I want to, and I can't make the pavement cracked. I mean, if I sat here and I don't know, whatever, blame the city I live in, the pavement isn't all of a sudden going to crack and the sewers aren't going to open up. That's not how that works. Yes, and it's like Sub went over. They turned down support because it was going to come from Trump. So they turned down money. And not that would have fixed anything. They probably found a way to waste that. But yeah, they turned down support.
I'm not going to sit here and paint you, you know, a picture through rose-colored glasses and not tell you that Jackson, Mississippi doesn't have its issues and its problems. But at the end of the day, our problems are not any different than any other city of our size with the population of our size. And these problems are going to get fixed. We're coming out.
Bro, listen, this is complete BS. Because Dayton is about the same size as Jackson. And, you know, Dayton doesn't have a 92% whatever murder rate. There are plenty of towns that are Jackson size that don't have that murder rate. So it's not the same. This is delusional or retarded. Depends on how you look at it. Oh, and how much lack of accountability do they have? Let's see. And if you didn't know, they couldn't pick up the trash either. They couldn't pick up the trash in Jackson for quite a while. So, mayor, race has been all in this, referring to the heart of Jackson, Mississippi trash crisis. City's 2 white council members split on votes. The 3 black council members have voted against the contract as well. It was race-based because the black council members wouldn't vote for the contract. So trash will continue to pile up in Jackson. Despite a specially called Jackson City Council meeting Wednesday, no agreement was reached that would get the ball rolling for residents of Jackson receiving garbage collection. New Orleans-based Disposal Inc., Richards Disposal Inc., stopped collecting garbage on April 1st after emergency contract expired. Since then, Mayor, I don't know what is this, Chukwi Antar Lumumba. Man, look, if your mayor has a name that sounds like the Secretary General of the UN, you're in trouble. And the city council have been deadlocked in a war that has left Jacksonians with trash piling up for nearly 2 weeks. On Wednesday, the city council voted on several items, but in every instance, the tally was 3-3, with 1 member absent. Ward 3, Councilman Kenneth Stokes, the guy who was complaining in the last video. The Stokes guy, that's him. Of a family health issue, couldn't vote on the contract. So 1 vote was to give Richards a 1-year emergency contract, that would allow for a new request for a proposal to be conducted to find a vendor. That failed, 3-3. Another was for a 90-day emergency contract. That failed, 3-3. They don't have a tiebreaker. Like, dude, the mayor can't break the tie. So, and it was race-based, right? Race, because 2 out of the 3 no votes were from black people. So obviously, you know, it was the white man's fault. And that's how backwards it is. That's how backwards the leadership is. So, anywho. All right, let's close all that. Let me see. So, let's see, next segment. Oh, no. And give you a couple quick hits here. So Anton recently got some penetration.
Back to what somebody was saying, where it's vote for. Let me ask you a question. Would you vote for?
Yeah,
Why?
I'm gonna just be real honest with this. She's a black woman.
Yeah,
because they skin folk, not Kim folk.
I think it goes back to what somebody was saying, where it's not voting for someone, but majority will vote for somebody else just to. Hold on. Let me line this out.
I
Is
think
it
majority.
only because she a black woman?
Yeah,
Do you not see how that's a bad idea?
elaborate.
Okay, so we're in 3 proxy wars.
with some of the most powerful leaders in the world. She failed at the border, in which we have an estimation of 15 to 20 million people illegally into this country. That is literally overtaking and bankrupting Chicago to the tune of over $400 million per year, and they are in a deficit. Oakland is going out of business. San Francisco, ditto. California, $65 billion deficit. New York, they're literally cutting trash, in which they are the rattiest, dirtiest city, and they've taken up resources as far as free healthcare, free hotels to the tune of $600 a day. They're literally taking over your schools. Your taxpayer dollars are going to fund the migrant crisis. She was supposed to be in charge of this. We have a failing economy. Every single day I see people getting on the internet talking about $30 an hour is the new minimum wage because inflation is fucking out of control. At one point, it was at almost 10%, depending on what city that you in. She has no policy, no record to stand on. One of the biggest things that she did in her career was lock up more black men than ever before, but we sitting here and vote her in office on identity politics. The very person that she was under as far as the president of the United States of America, she called him racist during a debate, which shows you how fake she is. And the only thing that we can stand on from a policy perspective is whether or not she's black and she's a woman. We did that during the Obama administration, and he didn't do anything for black people. As a matter of fact, y'all complain because the only person that he did, or the only group of people that he really stood for is the alphabet community, and that's his landmark thing that he's still standing on today. So the only thing that we have to stand on is identity politics. That shit didn't work with Tiffany Henyard in Dayton, Illinois. It didn't work with Karen Bass. It didn't work with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. It didn't work with Brandon Johnson that then took over her position in Chicago. It didn't work with Andre Dickens in Atlanta. It didn't work with Eric Adams in New York. It doesn't work across the country. Every single Democratic city is a hellhole. And we sitting here talking about identity politics?
Yeah. So there's an IQ crisis in the black community. Is there? Let's see.
But in between time, hey friends and enemies, I'm just back to ask you, do y'all need a White Urgency is Violence Part 3 workshop? White Urgency is Violence Part 3. Do y'all need that workshop again? Because raising $8 million on a 1.5 hour call, it's giving 2020. It's giving 2020 when all the white people in the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands turned into the Martin Luther King before the first. Sir Martin Luther King. All of you were Martin Luther King, and you had money. You were the wisest racial justice advocates, and you just had resources. And then by 2021, let's not wait till the water runs dry. It had run dry. There was zero resources, content creators, educators, programming. Y'all was buying back black debt, and then y'all didn't have no money for years until recently. The reason why White Urgency is violence is because White Urgency does this. It hops from crisis to crisis, and in between, there's nothing sustainable. There's no organization. There's no community. Okay, white people, White Urgency is violent because you have no community between crisis. And as a result, you get to turn your eyes away from whatever you don't deem a crisis. So you go from pussy hats to we're all in hashtags. We understand the assignment hashtags. Millions and millions of dollars. But in between time, you're not kind to each other, so you sure ain't kind to me. This urgency, we got to get it. We got to fix racism. It's violent. For the record, I don't really think y'all need another workshop. I'll do the workshop, but I don't think you really need another workshop. I think your life needs to become the workshop. You need to, the reason why Black people in general, we don't really panic is because we've been organizing. For example, people thought that Win with Black Women meeting just came out of nowhere. No, the Win with Black Women meeting was already scheduled. because it's been happening every Sunday since like 2019. Because we organize, we be in community, and we don't stop when we think we've won the thing and go back to business as usual. We don't have that luxury. Here's the gag. Neither do you, white people. Neither do you. Okay?
What?
It's violent.
What? Auntie. You just gonna have to catch up, Auntie. Yeah, I don't know what this one was saying.
All white people are racist.
A classic.
So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually, instead of people of color and Black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that up front.
Yeah, yes. Booger built Ashley. Booger built Ashley. So, time for some culture.
Back up.
Recently, this Fulio is some rapper, right? So they're arresting his killers.
Back up. Back up. Back up. All
right. They're arresting his killers in a thunderstorm, right? But here's the thing. Here's what was noted by this person. Look at the neighborhood they're in. These are just spoiled suburban kids who wanted to be street niggas that badly. Excuse me. You got that right. And so the problem is culture. It infects everything. All right. Another astute observation. There are no political solutions for cultural deficits. There's a serious correlation between debased cultural norms and low IQ. While all are certainly capable of senseless violence and hypersexuality, the least intelligent among us are limited to those forms of expression. Come on, Chad, tell me what that sounds like. Tell me what that sounds like. Eat, sleep, fight. Now, Black children raised in healthy environments and families that prioritize education, discipline, work ethic, and other positive ideals statistically perform on par or even better than children of other demographics. It would seem that culture is the primary determining factor. All right. So not all are retarded, but I mean, enough. Enough. Let me see. Oh, here's another one. Are they retarded? They might be. Right? Y'all got to wake up and smell the coffee, man. Black people are in danger of becoming a permanent underclass. In America, with these extremist Republican regimes at the state level, they're trying to erase everything we ever fought for. Niggas got to get serious, man. I live in Texas. We got real lunatics like Elon Musk trying to make the state their footstool, and we already got a lunatic governor with lunatic millionaires backing him who have insane ideologies. What? You live in a Republican-dominated state, and I think you're doing just fine. Matter of fact, Black people that want to live well in Texas are. You know what this self-image of an underclass. So your solution is everyone leave? Everyone leave what? The areas that are jacked up? Yes. They have to die. I mean, if the people that are trapped there, I mean, I would not suggest anything be done until there is a cultural admission to the failure. No, there has to be a across the board cultural acknowledgement of the failure. Period. Period. So, oh, and one other thing, I wanted to go over this.
The one.
Here it is. This was good, man. If you have not seen this, all right. If you have not seen this, this is a candid conversation with Hood Conservative, and this is on SKC's channel. I highly suggest you listen to it. It was great. So we're gonna go back, and I'm just gonna highlight a few things.
IQ matters. IQ is real, and I think there is an intelligence gap that has to be overcome in order for certain conversations to really have any level of real productivity.
He's gonna.
And I don't want to go farther than that.
He said he went full Charles Murray.
Yeah. I mean, listen, some guys are just dumb, and then perhaps too dumb to have serious conversation with. But you know what? That's only a small part of it, because you know what is fascinating about the Black perspective, well, Black interactions rather. The intelligent Black people will have the same logical process as the relatively unintelligent, because they both wind up in the same place. And yet it's hard to imagine you get to the same place without taking some of the same steps. And it's fascinating how we have people who are otherwise high enough IQ, functioning, intelligent people, but they think retardedly. And it's an amazing thing to see.
Give me
Hence the name of the stream.
an example of what you're talking about, and I'm gonna double back to the Black codes as feminine thing in a bit. But on this subject here, when you say even some of the most, I would say, highly decorated academic individuals within Das Communitas coming to the same line of reasoning, what are some examples of that?
Do you suppose an Ibram X. Kendi is truly subpar IQ?
I mean, personally, yeah, I think that he is.
Okay. And I would only caveat that for his field of endeavor, right? So in that group of people, you're probably the dumbest guy in the room, but I don't think you're a dumb guy by any measure, any real objective measure. You're only dumb in a room full of smart people. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I imagine Kendi as kind of like the class mascot, and it just made everybody.
I tell you what, I think a lot of these academics are dumb relative to, well, basically the IQ gap is a standard deviation, right? A lot of these intellectuals, these academics, are only half a standard deviation. So they're smart amongst the group that is the standard deviation, but they go into the world and find out they're not that smart. And then it dawns on them like, hey, I can get over hustling the people dumber than me.
Feel good to push him forward and to, the golf clap for the ping pong ball in the garbage.
Now let's extrapolate that concept across the board. When you think about the process that produced the Kendi is relatively the norm of Black academia.
Yeah. I've heard Lowry and McWhorter make that argument.
So the smart niggas are dumb too, and it's a fascinating thing to watch, bro. I don't know how else to say it, because I like to say things in that kind of way too. But the smart niggas are dumb too, and I don't know what to do about that. It's funny though.
I'll seat that there. Let me go back to the Black codes as feminine thing, and I understand what you mean by that. However, if you were to put it in a different, I would say to explain it differently, because when I think of Black codes as feminine, I'm thinking zeros and ones and that whole thing, but or even like DNA. But what would be an alternative way for you to explain that to a broader audience? Black codes as feminine.
I think the codes as part is a bit of a modern, maybe slang attempt to describe a relatively new phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But and maybe it's not that new. Maybe black has always kind of sort of been more feminine than white, right? Because there seems to be a charge of whiteness as like supreme. You know what I'm saying? White supremacy, right? And so if white is the supreme, then black is the less supreme. If white is the alpha, black is the beta. And there seems to be just a sort of masculine dichotomy, a masculine versus a less masculine dichotomy there. But then also too, what I think people are really, really, truly getting at is that the spirit of the woman, the spirit of the female, seems to be the more prevalent spirit of Black America. This is attested to by like the violence rates. You know, obviously these are guys with low impulse control. I think the argumentation problem that we were just talking about, obviously, I say that the logical, cogent form of argumentation tends to be a more masculine thing. I don't have much academic research to back that up, but that's the point I'm standing on at this time. I just think it's a feminine position to argue circular, emotional, blackmailing, personal attack kind of arguments. I think it's inherently feminine. But to say codes as, I think a better way to say it would be maybe black is seen as, or it often presents as something more feminine than not.
So in essence, it has more matriarchal tendencies.
Absolutely, yes. I was trying to avoid that, but yeah.
Why were you trying to avoid the matriarchy?
Well, not the matriarchy per se, but I wanted to describe it in terms around just calling it a matriarchy, because that's the other obvious thing. Instead of codes is feminine, you know, black is matriarchal and white is patriarchal, right? The dichotomies seem to be like, the observations seem to be astute, whether or not we call them whatever we call them. They do seem to have an opposing kind of relationship to one another.
Yeah, it's thinking like almost like yin yang. You believe that it is so difficult for some of your panelists to, and I don't want to say walk away from, but why do you think that holding on to blackness as a primary identifying mark is so important to many of the individuals that you have conversation with?
I don't know if I've thought about that before. Why is it so hard to let go of? I mean, and I think maybe I don't have that level of emotional attachment to the concept, so it doesn't even register for me. It was never perhaps something for me to put down because I never intentionally.
Freeman's Journal, he says,
No.
Without inserting myself into it, it seems as though
have that level of emotional.
So, why? Because a lot of people have nothing else, right? If black defines them, what are they without black? I mean, it determines where they live. It determines their hobbies. It determines the clothes they wear. You know, it determines who they're attracted to. It determines their hobbies, right? If they don't have black, they have nothing. And really, and here's the thing. If they don't have white, they have nothing, because they have formed their concept of black as juxtaposed against white. So if they have white, they have nothing. And I think you can see that in the visceral reaction to the cities and localities breaking away, right? Like St. George, and how white flight, you see it's this visceral, they feel hurt. They feel hurt that they are no longer bonded to and around them. You know, it is an integral part of their, white is an integral part of black identity, in my opinion.
Attachment to the concept, so it doesn't even register for me. It was never perhaps something for me to put down because I never intentionally picked it up. At a certain point, I just realized, I don't think I want to do these things, and I was good with not looking at things in that way. I think there's a vacuum. I think the idea that the blackness identity is so all-consuming that to let it go it poses a vacuum problem. So if you won't be black, what will you be then? And the obvious answer is a man, which is what I kind of accepted. Like, I don't worry about what the rules of blackness are. I worry about what the rules of success as a man are. And I don't know if if a lot of black people that we have these conversations with, I don't know that they are willing to really focus on just being a man as opposed to being black. Because what does that even mean? Now you got to start from scratch with that shit. And it's tough, but that's what I think is the solution. At least that's how I've approached it.
I've always wondered this question because, like I said, it always renders in the back of my mind as I'm listening to a variety of conversations, and almost ultimately blackness will come up in some form or fashion. And without inserting myself into it, it seems as though there's some level of projection that comes in with this idea of blackness and identity. And I've just always wondered why does that have to be a primary identifying?
Are you identifying with whiteness now? I think to do that, to flirt with that idea, it raises what do you call it? Existential problems for black men. It's like your existence now is thrown in the air because black is all that you ever were, and all that you ever were was this oppositional thing.
Freeman's Journal, he says, you see intelligent black men caught up in being anti-white. They still portray black people as victims instead of promoting what has made them successful. If they aren't oppressed, then what are they? It does hold the thought that almost to something that Shelby Steele stated a long time ago, that that black people seem not to be able to handle freedom, because with freedom comes responsibility and accountability and the inability to point the finger about your situation and all of that stuff. I mean, would you add in that black codes as victim? Has it gotten to that point?
Redundancy, women are victims. Damsels in distress.
Okay.
Managed by people who had a fondness for the ideas of socialism and Marxism and whatnot. And so ultimately the two ideas cannot be separated at this point. To be to be in your blackness is to kind of be with the socialism and all.
Yeah, I do agree with you on.
Now that is interesting, right? If you read, who's that guy? Manning, darn it. But the whole point of the reformation of the black identity was to make it Marxist, to use an underclass to disrupt the system. That is why so many black people have a problem with individuality and analyzing, what is black as having separate parts, right? The community does not code as individual, right? Individual is going to code as capitalist, as free, as responsible, as can fail, right? But the group identity can't fail. Right, the group identity, like Shelby Steele said, they have a problem with freedom because they have a problem with accountability and failure and standing up on their own. So it's like everywhere you go, all of the dysfunction, there is a ready answer why it is an external force that has created it. And let's see. Let me move ahead here. Another good point.
Let me do this. Let me go into another line of reasoning that something I've always wanted to ask you. And you don't have to go into heavy detail on this. Maybe I'll just try to keep it as general as possible. Constantly being confronted with heuristics. Or for those that, and I'm not trying to use a $25 word, but
I was about to ask you. I've heard the word in usage, but I can't really grasp its definition.
The rule of thumb thinking. It's typically rule of thumb or quick response information to speed cognitive responses instead of having in-depth conversations. Typically, people who hold on to heuristics, one would be, well, obviously, that the white man is against us, that type of stuff.
It seems like the typical usage of talking points then.
Right. It's surface level understanding of things. So it can go, you can't say talking points things, but there's a little bit extra flavor to it. It also kind of involves misinterpreting more complex topics, tendency to rely on simplistic explanations.
You reminded me of my reparations debate last night, when specifically the portion about all the different people who got reparations. And then I had to respond like, each of these individual cases are individually radically different from the black case. And I don't understand how you try to use these as some kind of rock solid argument. Like it's not a gotcha.
Right. Because each of those situations, and I did hear
inquisitiveness on your own behalf, meaning like at one point I question why I think the things I think. Where do my ideas come from?
And that's what I guess that's one of the seats of the
Hey, SKC, can you give me like a 10-minute break, maybe less? Because I gotta run in the store real quick.
No. Go do your thing. And I guess in the broader conversation of it all, to the audience who may be wondering, why is SKC wanting to have this style of conversation? Well, it's because I kind of wonder how many others are out there that maybe like myself, who get tired of the lack of intellectual rigor in these back and forth with some people, and it forces me to go to other places and have the conversations or just listen to, as a conservative was talking about, different frameworks and see how I would be able to exercise my wits in those different mental universes as they were, and see how, you know, if I would be able to hold my own and all of that stuff. And then sometimes I come back and, you know, I get a link to this or that, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not an elitist. I'm not. But
I mean, for someone who isn't an elitist, you sure say I'm not an elitist a lot.
Outside of the comedy, it is it sometimes it almost seems as though you're going back in time to a prehistoric era where people don't understand very basic things like what a hammer does, what is the purpose of a saw. And I just gotta wonder sometimes, do people? Okay, I'll ask you, the audience. Have you ever gotten to the point of where, in some of the community conversations, where you have just found yourself eerily bored and you're just like, holy crap, I have to.
Yes. Skip ahead. Actually, no, 103.
So far as a glass ceiling for the intellectual conversations that can take place within certain associated spaces, at some point, can it get to a point to where the iron is no longer sharpening? They're dulling each other. and could it be that it's getting to a point of where it's like, how dull can we get? That's the game.
Well, this is why earlier, when you asked me about having all these conversations over the years, I said that initially, like, I was kind of like, I'm in it to win it. I'm right. You niggas wrong. You're crazy. Like, I had an aggression maybe to it. And now it's just like, it's jovial. You know, I used to think life was a tragedy, and now I realize it's a comedy. It's that kind of transition, right? Because it is funny. It's very funny. Like, it's funny to me that, like, I'm wondering what's going on there. Because, like, bro, I look at my kids, and then I look at some of the other kids in the neighborhood, and it's like, I don't want my kids to even talk to y'all. Yeah. You're only going to make it worse for them. It's hard enough already because they live here, and now it's like, oh God, because you wonder, like, just where do I don't know if let me take a minute to formulate this gripe strongly. You know, I come up with this concept that matriarchy dumbs down the population over time, and I wonder if that's what we're talking about in a roundabout way. Once upon a time, in order to be a successful Black, you had to be, like, competent. You had to be sharp. The white man wasn't gonna let some dumb nigga go out there representing him and acting all stupid and whatnot. Like, at some point along the way, the idea, like the competent Black person just seemed to not be much of a thing like it used to be. And now you just got all these people, like, you know, they have jobs and they're you know, stable and whatnot, but when you talk to them, there's not much there.
I don't know.
Yes. Look.
One thing that I found in
I'm going to develop this idea.
Das Communitas that I would say probably the most shocking, particularly as a youngster. One, when it comes to intellectual conversations, the severe lack of humility. This to try to believing that they have a hard grasp on something because they heard it in their own mind, and then they began to believe it because they were around a bunch of other people who perhaps never really just had that ability to conceptualize things. They just followed after whatever, and it's like the reason why I state that is because it seems like in a lot of conversations, a lot of the back and forth that goes on would be people not having the humility to believe that they could be wrong. Just to sit back for a moment and to say, you know what, let me go through this exercise that my idea, my viewpoint is absolutely wrong. How would I own claims?
Well, why would you do that if your God is the one true God?
Oh man. Dude says I'm always right, even when I'm wrong. I could have been right. Mike G.
Yes.
On that thought, conservative. I know you've been in many a political back and forth with people, and team red, team blue. It seems like grand hypocrisy when it comes to the
externally resolved with welcome open arms, right? Like nobody who comes with great ideas and a great plan, the black people are not going to just be like, you know what, yeah, that guy's right, we're going to do what he says, right? You know, how much force will it take?
I think it's going to take a
Hey, so the question here was, what type of force is going to take to change the retards?
A bold force. I see a little bit of it in I see a little bit of it in some of the things that people like Vivek, how he puts things. But I think you need that sledgehammer of almost like a Trumpish to say something in like a debate or something. Like, say if the racism card is played, like I know that it likely will be played, you really need somebody to say, okay, I don't give a dang. You can keep all your race car stuff and blah blah blah. None of that stuff is moving anything effectively forward for the majority.
I think this attitude is a precursor. You need the attitude before the attitude inspires the action.
Yeah. And
the action being the hammer, right? You have to have the will to use the hammer. This hammer can only be wielded by he who is worthy, and you have to see yourself as worthy of wielding the hammer. Looking at you, white man. We're looking at you, white folk.
He said, "You gonna put Trump in a Captain America costume?" I think, but I think you may be onto something because it really is seeming to be shaping up to be a tale of the tape, and that you're gonna have this the avatar of the black woman against the avatar of the old white man.
Countless black people have effectively wasted IQ points studying.
Okay, here we go.
And developing and creating all this poorly sourced work about, and that is black studies. The majority of the literature that you would read surrounding what's called black studies, especially as you get into like the older stuff, some of the heroes of the field, it's effectively pseudoscience, bro. It's melanated power of the Negro pseudoscience. That's all it really is.
It's part of the dumbing down process.
When you guys state stuff like this, it brings to mind some of those articles that were forwarded over to me from I would say the younger generation in Das Community. One was mad with me the other day and watched the stream that I did on certain subjects. I saw it with the reparations conversation, but I see expressions that.
Come on.
Walking away from it, saying that I only saw black and white. You guys thoughts?
Yeah.
Hey, what, Freeman?
I don't know. It's an IQ thing, bro. I don't know what else to call it. You know, there's a certain level of thinking that black people as a group have not been called to attain. And, you know, to Hood's point, right, back in the 50s, you know, if you were working at NASA, you was a smart dude, right? The barriers forced black people to be excellent, right? We've had the exact opposite of that for the last 50 years. That's going to have an effect.
What if racism was like our whetstone? You know, it was the thing upon which we sharpened our blade, you know? And now that we don't have all this racism, we have nothing to sharpen our blade against.
Bro, I agree with you. I don't even think, I mean, I know SKC's dying over here, but I absolutely.
I'm just imagining a poster in my head, like KKK poster. We make you niggas better.
But no. Seriously, the whetstone didn't exist long enough, right? So there is it's such a huge difference between black people who have been functional and middle class for generations, right? And people who have been communita for generations. Like you're talking like a kid who hasn't seen a man who gets up and goes to work every day since the 70s and has been raised by women for generations. There is such an enormous gulf you know, between the two different classes of Black people, and they live in the same geographic area, you know, and it's like, you know, that's probably uncomfortable, but I mean, I don't know what else you call it, you know, and it's obvious, you know, like I always do I always show the racial dot maps, right? And if you cross-reference that with like Whole Foods and Whole Foods locations and stuff like that, you see that there are Black people who are upper middle class that live around, you know, these areas who are, you know, they might as well live off the moon compared to the community. And that's what I wanted to get to, right? Is that part of that has been pulled away, right? The culture of excellence really kind of drove Black culture, and people didn't have a choice but to ride the wave, right? You had Black people opening banks in the 1920s, right? You had people excelling in the military. You had the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, there was all types of ways where Black people were succeeding because they had to be that much better than everybody else. So when your heroes are all excellent and not rappers, that's going to affect the broader culture in a positive way. And when I say it hasn't been that way since the 70s, right? Black culture in and of itself had to be excellent. And then after the civil rights era, and then you had the 70s, basically, we're going to give you as much free crap as we can because, you know, you're poor Black waifs and we got to help you do better. It utterly destroyed Black people, right? The politics and the money is what did it. So if you want to fix it, you're going to have to take the money away. You know, and honestly, I think the most the best case for the lower caste of Black people is Trump wins, there's mass deportation, and there are lowest rung job opportunities that people can get into, because I don't think people really pay attention to how cooked Generation Alpha is. And I mean cooked. You know, if you're, you know, a fan of the space, or you've been around my channel, SKC's channel, you've heard the teachers saying the kids can't read. And that's all the kids, right? Because the out of wedlock birth rate has only gone up for all groups. So you're talking a ton of kids who, you know, they speak meme slang, right? Freeman's Journal, why are Black men who graduate from Morehouse aren't celebrated? I mean, you know why. You know, and that's the thing we were going over today earlier on Sub-Zeros. Intellectualism is not seen as an attractive trait amongst the community. Just isn't. So let me skip ahead. I want to get to one more part.
You know, some tribesmen or supposed to be some ancient civilization within Africa that had these they were power merchants of some sort, and were traveling through the desert to sub-Saharan Africa and so forth. And when I was looking at it, they had little pictures and hold on, and I just asked them a simple question. I said, where did they get the horses from? And they thought I was joking with it. They were like, Africa, of course. And like, holy crap, what is going on?
Hey, you know what? Not only that, I'm willing to bet the entire cattle herding industry was probably introduced to Africa. It wasn't created natively. That's just a suspicion.
And I have the same line of questioning, just very basic things, when people invoke all the stuff about the Moors and stuff. I'm like, okay, where did they get their horses from?
Oh boy.
I mean, honestly, Moorish horses were probably all literally Arabian horses. Just because.
Here's the thing. Why was that information about the slaves doing this, or the Africans having this powerful tribe and all that? Why was that so important to that person?
Identity.
Exactly. Why? Because he's just Black.
Correct.
And the identity is also religious in some. It's a religion in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be my new phrase, right? You're like, oh, I don't get it. Well, of course you don't get it. You're just Black.
Stop.
It's brutal, but it's simple, and it does kind of. There's a finality to it, like, because. And this is kind of what we've been talking about all night. You specifically probed me about my interactions with this kind of phenomena. And it's like, you do get to a point where you realize, like, The guy you're talking to, he not only is he just black, he doesn't really aspire beyond blackness, and that's even more dangerous.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's just you're just black. Oh, let's see. Man, we got a lot. Heck on, I have something else too. And another kind of how did we get here moment will be I had a reply to a particular tweet that I wanted to read. So I'm going to read that, and I think we'll be done after that. Oh, darn it. So oh, darn it. I thought I had it queued. Apologies. Give me a moment here. Darn. No, I'm talking. So no, I'm just trying to find this one tweet. Okay, here it is. Darn it. Oh, dang. There's a lot of back and forth here. Ah, here it is. Okay. So, and this is Torian Walker. He's a good guy. No ill will here. I'm just all right. So 2.5 million over the phone overnight for a politician, but grassroots community activists putting in work can't get funding. So I had my question was, why the fascination with a failed strategy, right? And when I say failed strategy, I mean political action to affect the end state for Black people. All right, Booker T. Washington versus W.E.B. Du Bois was a battle between two poles: political action for equality with whites, however you want to define that, and being industrious to gain equality, right? A precursor to political rights. Now, and just on this notion, we already know which one works, right? So, we already know which one that works, right? Like Hispanics, Latinos, what did they do? They just worked, right? Their political influence is a side effect of families, not of any particular policy. So, had Black people continued on their course, right, with the Booker T. Washington method, they'd probably be double the number of Black people that there are, and the aggregate will be doing as well as, if not better, than everybody else. So, from Reconstruction until Civil Rights era, BTW's approach, Booker T. Washington's approach, was the default, right? That was the only avenue to progress. And progress, Black people did. Black men formed unions, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, formed families, and formed communities. And in irony, the bus boycotts of the Civil Rights era were so effective because Black people were industrious and they were woven into the economy. In any metric used to measure a healthy community, Black people were passing white people in the 1950s, right? Higher marriage rate, and a Black child educated in a city was likely to have a better education than a white kid in the rural area, right? Then came civil rights, and the philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois won out, and it has been straight downhill ever since. like unabated downhill since the 70s. Du Bois could never have imagined the amount of political power that Black people currently have, controlling entire cities that were once majority white, being governors, senators, etc., while receiving the votes and express support of white people. He'd also be apoplectic over the conditions all this power has produced. Right? Not a single success story of a political solution. Not one. Not the Panthers, which are communists. Not any of these so-called icons of the civil rights movement has done anything to improve the lot of Black people beyond the metrics of the 1950s. So I am perplexed as the continued fascination with 60 years of failed strategy. Right? Even today, we can see the difference. Randall actually has a school, accepts zero government funding, and did it himself. While Dr. Umar, the reparations advocate, believes in government assistance, has been getting ready for over a decade. There is a clear juxtaposition between what works and what does not. I have my own thoughts, but I would like to hear yours. Whither the funding for political action? How would the outcome be any different this time? And I don't think it is going to be any different, because the problem is not political power. The problem is culture. And nothing can move in the aggregate for Black people until the family's fixed. And that is, that's going to require a lot of pain, right? Yeah, and it depends on your outlook. If you think it's just a bunch of Black men siring children willy-nilly, then that's going to be a problem, because Black isn't going to exist, right? It's not with the interracial dating numbers and not with the trends. It's not going to exist. And all these numbers that people like to talk about, most Black people are, marry each other. Once the baby boomers die off, those numbers are going to hurtle downwards. Hopefully the census numbers in 2030 will be a wake-up call, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And to the earlier point about the whetstone, right? This is Robert Pinckney, graduated in 52, got his master's in 56 in electrical engineering from MIT. By 1969, he was working on the Apollo project as a project engineer on the Digital Computation Group operations staff. As an upcoming engineer, being Black should not be your first concern, Pinckney said during a Black MIT alumni panel in 1973. It doesn't matter what your color or what race you are, companies pay more attention to what you can do. Right? So the whetstone of having to achieve deprived the Black community of Robert Pinckney's, right? And created two poles within the culture. And Auntie said, I agree that segregation wasn't long enough. I don't think it's segregation. I think it's forced immigration. It would have happened on its own, because people, once redlining was put in place, right? Once an end to redlining occurred, then it was going to happen anyway. I think a lot of Black intellectuals in the 60s who had an inferiority complex living in the suburbs used or took their frustration and pumped that into, inner city Black folks, and, just kept burning stuff down. But anywho, let's see. There's an interesting conversation on the common society versus the subordinate society. But I will say that for a later date. Let's see. What time is it? Oh, no time for a panel. Hey, I appreciate everyone for coming through. I want to recommend this conversation. Right, go listen to that. Right, it was good. It was real good. a lot of bullet points worthy there. That should get sussed out if you so desire. But yeah. So, wait, what do the polls say? I didn't read the poll. Wait, what happens when you make a poll? Can you see it? I don't know. I think retarded won. Pretty sure retarded won in the poll. So, hey, thanks everybody for showing up. And I'm out of here. Appreciate you coming.